The potential of the Justice League being a multi-billion-dollar franchise is right there. The Avengers did it, and they're far less, or at the time, were far less popular than the Justice League, but the previous regime and everybody involved dropped the ball. Well, it looks like James Gunn is going to pick up that ball and just beeline it for that end zone and hopefully score a touchdown, because, yeah, the Justice League is coming. Let's talk about what James Gunn said. I can already see some of the comments. It's revisionist history because now everybody's convinced everything Marvel Studios has ever done is perfect and that the Avengers were always a guaranteed hit. Not to bring up the fact that the Avengers going into its first opening was predicted to be a bomb and make no more than $650 million. And at the time that the film was announced, the entire industry laughed at them, including Zack Snyder. So there's a lot of revisionist history, and if you go back to the 2000s, the Avengers owned the mind space for team-up teams. If you brought up the Avengers, only the nerds knew who they were. Just like Iron Man or Captain America comics, they couldn't sustain issues. Again, revisionist history will tell you that that's not true. It is. I lived through it. I was there. I was a fan. Everybody laughed at the Avengers, especially when I said, hey, I like the Avengers more than Justice League. It's just how it went. But in the last 15 years, the Avengers have become the dominant team, and the Justice League is jobbers. They're jobbers. So let's talk about what James Gunn said. And for those of you that don't understand what a jobber is, that is a person in wrestling who literally just does the job, aka they're there to just lay down and take the pin for whoever they need to put over. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's get to what James Gunn said. So, in an interview with EW, when James Gunn was asked about the Justice League, what is the status, and if the ideas for teaming up members of different factions and styles, like the Justice Gang, was in fact building up to the Justice League, this is what James Gunn said, and I quote, "The most important thing is the specific stories, but there's also a much bigger story that we're telling that will take a little bit longer to tell. That's sort of what my next couple of things are going to be. And of course, but there is no Justice League in this world, not yet." End quote. And that's a direct response to if they're leading to building up the Justice League. Okay, so the key here is not yet, and the fact that he's working on a couple of things. So first and foremost, let's talk about teasing the Justice League. So, obviously, he says there is no Justice League in this world. But we do, in fact, know that it's Maxwell Lord who has what is called the Justice Gang. Now, of course, Maxwell is a villain, and he's putting together more or less a squad of a bunch of nobodies to try to, by the look of it, assemble the first team. But this team will be more government run by the look of it, or a task force that's sort of pointed like a weapon and shot where they need them. Sort of like the Sokovia Accords, how that's what Iron Man and co wanted, to be sort of, run by somebody and answer to whoever so they don't have jurisdiction to do whatever. And then the Justice League would be the counter to that. They're Steve's team, right? Steve's team is like, look, if the world needs us, we need to go there regardless of being told to go there because we need to save it, and you can't have bureaucrats arguing. That's the Justice League, right? That's the difference. So what he's saying here is that team is not in this world just yet, which is true. But also what's important to this is the fact that this is an ongoing world. It's the moving pieces. Everything is slowly building up, and unlike the last time, they don't have problems with perception just yet, but also they're not taking a quick rush to the Justice League like the last time, where it's crazy to think about it, but you had Superman, then you had a Superman versus Batman film, and the next time you see both those characters in a big capacity was a Justice League team-up, and all the other periphery members were teased literally with trailers dropped into Batman v Superman. It just didn't make sense, So This time, they have the foresight to do it right. And that's what I think they're going to do. So now we are going to talk about the inevitable reboot that will be happening. And guys, it will. Because James Gunn, in the very same interview, teased that they are building up the rest of Chapter 1, aka Gods and Monsters. And as he says in the quote, the most important thing is the specific stories that are also building a much bigger story that they're telling, but it's going to take a bit longer to tell. So think about it. They got to get Superman out. And then there's, of course, what they just teased and James Gunn teased, which is a Batman team-up. So a Batman and Superman world's finest. They also are working on a Wonder Woman reboot. And then if you look at the rest of the characters, there's some weird oddball ones, but there's some definitive characters that you look at and you're like, yeah, those characters kind of define the DC universe for their uniqueness and style. And this Justice League doesn't have to be the core members. You know, the Avengers wasn't the original Avengers members from the comics. It doesn't have to be the standard fare. You can do Superman and Swamp Thing and Hawkgirl and Supergirl and Batman and maybe somebody else. Maybe a Green Lantern here or there, right? Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart. Maybe you tease an Aquaman. I don't know. Maybe you even toss Peacemaker in there after he's made amends and become more of a hero. But they're going to do it. That's the thing. The Justice League is a valuable brand. It was a multi-billion-dollar franchise until it wasn't. You can get back to that. And right now, the people that grew up in the early 2000s watching the Justice League cartoon are now the ones with a little bit more disposable income. And that's what matters to them, capitalizing on that. And you can see everything is pointing towards that. So maybe Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, ends with the gods, the heroes, fighting a monster. Now, I don't know who that could be. Maybe it's Brainiac. Maybe that's the setup that we're hearing from the ending of the upcoming Superman film. Or maybe it's something else. But whatever it is, it's going to be teased. And they are going to do it. And that's the hopeful future of DC right now. And I'm truly hoping that they can nail this, because we need the Justice League and we need DC Studios to take down Marvel a couple pegs so Marvel puts more effort into it like they did before. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will. And if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching and have a good one.